Welcome to Headphone News, International Edition for Wednesday, November 20th, 2024.
Market update, Fed decisions and economic outlook. Global markets opened the week on a positive note, with European stock futures increasing. After a tough week for world stocks, traders looked for direction. The US dollar fell from its recent high against major currencies, while Treasury yields dropped to new lows in Tokyo. Focus shifted to potential interest rate cuts from the Federal Reserve and expected announcements from Trump regarding key economic positions. Strong economic data from the U.S. led to revised expectations for a rate cut in December, decreasing from over 65% to around 58%. In Europe, final consumer inflation data for October came into focus, and Bank of England officials answered questions in Parliament about government spending plans. Upcoming earnings from Nvidia, the tech company, are anticipated to have a significant impact on market trends.
IMF warns of economic impact from tariffs in Asia. The International Monetary Fund has expressed serious concerns about the effects of retaliatory tariffs on Asia's economy. Proposed tariffs from the United States could reach 60% on Chinese goods, along with an additional 10% on all other imports. These tariffs threaten to disrupt economic growth and supply chains across the region. At a recent forum in Cebu, Philippines, IMF officials stressed that such measures could increase costs and reduce trade efficiency. The IMF's predictions show global economic growth at 3.2% for the next 2 years, while Asia is projected to grow at stronger rates of 4.6% this year and 4.4% next year. Tensions in trade relations among major partners could have significant impacts on the global economy.
Moldovan Interior Minister resigns after election. Adrian Efros, Moldova's Interior Minister, announced his resignation on November 19, 2024. This follows the re-election of President Maya Sandu, who secured 55% of the votes. The election results reflect a split in public opinion about the government's direction. This cabinet reshuffle aims to respond to voter concerns and foster stability. Moldova continues to face challenges in its relations with the European Union and Russia, especially amid the ongoing war in neighboring Ukraine and the influx of refugees.
UK retailers alarmed by budget changes. Britain's top retailers are sounding the alarm over a recent budget announcement. On October 30th, the Labour government raised national insurance contributions by 1.2 percentage points, increasing the rate to 15% and lowering the threshold for payments to £5,000. Retail leaders warn that these changes may lead to higher prices and significant job losses in the retail sector. A letter from 79 retail executives has been submitted, requesting a meeting with Finance Minister Rachel Reeves to discuss the potential impacts of the budget. The retail industry, which supports millions of jobs in the UK, faces an expected annual cost increase of £7 billion. These changes could slow down economic growth and result in store closures.
IMF funds approved for Ukraine. The International Monetary Fund, known as the IMF, has announced an agreement to provide about $1.1 billion in financial assistance to Ukraine. This funding still needs approval from the IMF's executive board. If the board approves it, total financial support for Ukraine under this program will rise to nearly $9.8 billion. The conflict with Russia has now lasted for 1,000 days, creating significant challenges for Ukraine's economy. Despite these difficulties, the IMF expects Ukraine's economy to grow by 4% this year, although growth may slow to between 2.5% and 3.5% by 2025. In October, inflation in Ukraine reached 9.7%, largely due to increasing food and labor costs. This situation underscores the importance of international financial support during these tough times.
German economy faces challenges ahead. The German economy is expected to stagnate in the final quarter of 2024 due to a softening labor market and the possibility of new trade tariffs. The Bundesbank reported that growth was just 0.2% in the third quarter, Weak foreign demand and low investment continue to impede economic recovery. Wage growth, which reached 8.8% recently, is likely to decrease as upcoming negotiations aim for lower agreements. Moreover, policy changes in the United States and proposed tariffs by President-elect Trump add further risks to Germany's export-driven economy.
Concerns over proposed tariffs by Trump. Major U.S. corporations are expressing concerns about the proposed tariffs by President-elect Trump. He plans to impose heavy tariffs, reaching up to 60%, on imports from China. Walmart has pointed out that these tariffs could lead to higher prices for consumers, impacting their purchasing power. Discussions among more than 200 companies indicate a rising anxiety about increased costs and inflation. Economists project that these tariffs could significantly drive up inflation rates in the United States. As a result, many executives are reevaluating supply chain strategies to cope with potential challenges. Overall, concerns regarding the economic effects of these proposed tariffs are intensifying.
ECB proposes change in monetary policy. On November 19, 2024, in Milan, Italy, Fabio Panetta from the European Central Bank stressed the importance of changing monetary policy. He pointed out that the Eurozone economy is moving back to stability after challenges faced in 2022 and 2023. With inflation rates now stabilizing, Panetta recommended that the central bank consider lowering interest rates to encourage economic recovery. He also called for clearer guidance on future policies to assist businesses and households in making informed financial decisions.
Switzerland concerned about U.S. tariff proposals. Switzerland is raising serious concerns over tariff proposals from U.S. President-elect Trump. He plans to impose a 10% increase on many imported goods, which could have a significant impact on Swiss exports, as about 20% of these goods go to the United States. Experts warn that these tariffs could potentially reduce Switzerland's economic output by 1%. The Swiss State Secretariat for Economic Affairs is exploring responses and aims to engage in discussions with U.S. officials and other European countries.
Poland extends energy price freeze for households. The Polish government has decided to extend the freeze on household energy prices for the first 9 months of 2025. Electricity rates will stay at 500 Polish zlotys, about $122 per megawatt hour. This move aims to assist families struggling with rising energy costs and to help keep inflation under control. The government intends to spend up to 5.456 billion Polish zlotys, roughly $1.34 billion, to maintain these price limits. Forecasts suggest that inflation could hit 4.3% in 2025 with this freeze in place, while it could reach 5.6% without it. This policy reflects the government's efforts to support consumers and ensure economic stability.
Trump nominates Gaetz and Hegseth for key cabinet roles. On November 19, 2024, President-elect Donald Trump nominated Matt Gaetz as Attorney General and Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. Gaetz, 42, has faced past scrutiny due to investigations related to sex trafficking allegations but was not charged. He plans to take strong actions against government agencies that he believes are biased. Hegseth, 44, is a military veteran and Fox News commentator who aims to reform the Department of Defense and its leadership. Both nominees have Trump's firm support and are expected to drive significant changes in U.S. policy.
Trump expected to nominate Lutnick for Commerce Secretary. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is likely to nominate Howard Lutnick, CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, as Secretary of Commerce. Lutnick's nomination could enhance U.S. trade policies against China, especially in the technology sector. He advocates for imposing tariffs on China and aims to bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States. The Commerce Department oversees important regulations that impact the tech industry. This role is vital in the ongoing technology conflict between the U.S. and China. If confirmed, Lutnick will encounter challenges from major Chinese tech companies. This nomination decision is still pending.
Advocates push for U.S. sanctions on Myanmar's military bank. On November 19, 2024, civil society groups in Myanmar called on the United States to impose sanctions on the Myanmar Economic Bank. These sanctions are intended to block the military junta from obtaining foreign currency needed to fund its operations. After taking control in February 2021, the junta's actions have led to a civil conflict that has displaced over 3 million people. Advocates highlighted the importance of cutting off financial support to the junta during this critical time. The U.S. previously froze about $1 billion in Myanmar assets and sanctioned other state-owned banks. This move could further weaken the junta's hold on power as it faces increasing challenges.
Market update: U.S.-Russia tensions and Nvidia earnings. On November 20, 2024, global markets experienced a recovery as tensions between the United States and Russia began to ease. Concerns rose when the U.S. allowed Ukraine to use American weapons, prompting a tough response from Putin. However, after an initial decline, stocks bounced back, with the S&P 500 and Nasdaq both finishing the day in positive territory. Investors are keenly awaiting earnings from Nvidia, which are expected to show a significant increase compared to last year. Additionally, key economic indicators from South Korea and Japan are likely to influence market trends. Central banks in China and Indonesia are expected to keep interest rates steady as they face currency-related challenges.
Spirit Airlines files for bankruptcy protection. On November 19, 2024, Spirit Airlines filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The Florida-based low-cost carrier struggled to adjust to changes in travel patterns after the COVID-19 pandemic. Daily aircraft usage fell by 16% compared to before the pandemic, while operational costs surged, leading to over $2 billion in debt. Additionally, the average fare for Spirit passengers declined by 19% from last year. Other budget airlines, including JetBlue and Frontier, also faced challenges during this time. Experts indicate that Spirit needs to implement effective restructuring strategies to remain competitive in the airline industry.
Clinton and Yellen celebrate 30 years of CDFI fund. On November 19, 2024, former President Bill Clinton visited the U.S. Treasury Department in Washington, D.C., to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Community Development Financial Institutions Fund, or CDFI fund. This fund has been crucial in providing financial support to small businesses and families in minority and underserved communities since its inception in 1994. Over the years, the CDFI fund has delivered billions in grants, bond guarantees, and tax credits to around 1,400 community lenders. During the event, current Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen highlighted the significant role of the CDFI fund in promoting economic development. Concerns are rising about possible budget cuts to the fund, as proposed by former President Trump in his 2018 budget plan. Trump's administration also appointed figures like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to a panel focused on reducing federal spending, which raises concerns about the future of funding for programs that support communities. This anniversary celebration showcased both the accomplishments of the CDFI fund and the challenges ahead in the shifting political landscape, underscoring the need for continued support for marginalized communities.
China holds loan prime rates steady amid economic concerns. On November 20, 2024, the People's Bank of China announced that key lending rates would remain unchanged. The one-year loan prime rate stays at 3.1%, while the 5-year rate holds steady at 3.6%. This move comes after significant cuts by lenders aimed at revitalizing the economy. New bank lending dropped to a 3-month low in October, raising concerns about economic performance. Analysts are increasingly worried about the yuan, which has weakened by about 1.8% against the U.S. dollar since the presidential election on November 5. External pressures are mounting, especially with Trump returning to the presidency, which may complicate China's economic strategies. Experts believe that further rate cuts could be necessary to tackle ongoing economic challenges.
India's solar energy challenges. India faces significant challenges in expanding its solar energy sector due to a lack of skilled workers and insufficient government funding. These obstacles threaten ambitious clean energy targets aimed at increasing solar capacity. The government has implemented high tariffs on Chinese solar products to encourage local manufacturing, but industry leaders insist more support is needed. Each year, India aims to add 50 gigawatts of solar capacity, yet experts highlight a skills gap of 1.2 million workers. Companies in Greater Noida and Delhi are struggling to find qualified technicians and engineers. Major firms like Tata Power and Renew are investing in training programs, but the demand for skilled labor continues to grow. Without adequate workforce improvements, India may encounter difficulties in achieving its renewable energy goals.
Alibaba raises $5 billion in bond deal. Alibaba Group, a prominent e-commerce company from Beijing, China, has successfully raised $5 billion through a dual-currency bond offering. The deal includes $2.65 billion in US dollar bonds and 17 billion yuan, which is roughly $2.35 billion. This issuance stands as the largest corporate bond in the Asia-Pacific region for this year. Investor interest was strong, reaching $14.6 billion in demand. Alibaba plans to use the proceeds for various corporate purposes, including paying off debt and repurchasing shares. This marks Alibaba's return to the dollar bond market since 2021, showcasing a strategic approach to financial management.
Trump interviews candidates for Treasury Secretary position. On November 20, 2024, President-elect Donald Trump will hold interviews for the Treasury Secretary position. The candidates are former Federal Reserve Governor Kevin Warsh and Mark Rowan, CEO of Apollo Global Management. This key role significantly influences financial and economic policies in the United States. The search has expanded after some earlier candidates dropped out. Global investors and Wall Street are closely watching this decision, as it will greatly impact the U.S. economy.
Trump appoints Dr. Mehmet Oz to lead healthcare agency. On November 19, 2024, President-elect Donald Trump announced that Dr. Mehmet Oz will lead the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, commonly known as CMS. This agency oversees health insurance programs for millions of older adults, low-income individuals, and people with disabilities. Dr. Oz, a well-known former television doctor and heart surgeon, aims to focus on preventing diseases and cutting waste in healthcare spending. Confirmed by the Senate, he will manage critical programs like Medicaid and Medicare, which serve many Americans without employer-based insurance.
Qualcomm's positive outlook amidst trade concerns. Qualcomm, a leading chipmaker, is projecting $22 billion in revenue growth from new markets, including automotive technology and laptops. This update was shared during an investor event in New York. Despite worries over proposed tariffs from the incoming Trump administration on Chinese imports, Qualcomm executives are optimistic about maintaining strong business in China. Approximately 46% of the company's total revenue, which amounts to about $18.4 billion, comes from the Chinese market. Qualcomm is focusing on diversifying its products while strengthening partnerships with Chinese firms. Additionally, Qualcomm reported a stock increase of 13.7% year-to-date, though this is less than the overall rise in the Nasdaq Composite Index.
Addi secures major financing to grow services. On November 19, 2024, the Colombian fintech Addi announced it secured a $100 million credit line from Victory Park Capital to expand its Buy Now, Pay Later service. This funding is set to support growth in Colombia's rapidly growing e-commerce market. Since its launch in 2018, Addi has gained nearly 2 million customers and formed partnerships with over 18,000 merchants. This financial backing will help improve the services available to consumers, making it easier for those without traditional banking options to make purchases.
Bitcoin hits new record amid political changes. Bitcoin has reached a new high, surpassing $94,000. Reports suggest that Trump's media company is in talks to acquire the cryptocurrency trading firm backed. This development has sparked excitement in the market. This year, Bitcoin's value has more than doubled. The total value of the global cryptocurrency market has now exceeded $3 trillion. Analysts believe that expectations of a supportive regulatory environment under a potential Trump administration have fueled this growing interest in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
Trump appoints Linda McMahon as Education Secretary. On November 19, 2024, Donald Trump appointed Linda McMahon as the new Secretary of Education. This announcement comes as discussions about possibly abolishing the U.S. Department of Education continue. McMahon advocates for universal school choice across 12 states. She previously served as the Chief Executive Officer of World Wrestling Entertainment Incorporated (WWE) and led the Small Business Administration. Her new position raises significant questions about the future of education in the United States, particularly regarding the impact on students, teachers, and school funding.
Concerns prompt to end research collaborations with China. Recent events have raised serious national security concerns regarding research partnerships between Canada and China. The Canadian government is contemplating an end to all government-funded research with Chinese entities in sensitive areas. This consideration arises from a parliamentary committee report that highlights risks linked to espionage. Notably, 2 researchers at the National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg, Xiangguqiu and Kedingqing, were dismissed over allegations of sharing confidential information with China. Experts caution that collaborations in fields like artificial intelligence and life sciences could potentially threaten Canada's safety. The government has until March 2025 to respond to these guidelines, underscoring the ongoing discussion about balancing national security with scientific progress.
Japan's export growth amid trade concerns. In October 2024, Japan's exports rose by 3.1%. Driven primarily by increased demand for chip-making equipment from China. However, concerns loom over potential tariffs from the United States under President-elect Trump, which could harm Japan's trade and economy. The trade deficit for October totaled 461.2 billion yen, roughly $2.98 billion. Ongoing worries about weak global demand and the impact of U.S. trade policies pose significant challenges for Japanese businesses.
Calls for resignation of Canadian minister over Indigenous heritage claims. Randy Boissonnault, Canada's employment minister, is facing growing demands to resign over concerns regarding his Indigenous heritage. Indigenous leaders, including Joanna Bernard from New Brunswick, are calling for accountability after noticing discrepancies in Boissonnault's statements about his family background. Allegations indicate that his former company, Global Health Imports, claimed to be Indigenous-owned while competing for federal contracts. Critics are questioning the government's ability to confirm Indigenous identity. Blake Desjardins, an MP of Cree and Métis descent, has pointed out that Boissonnault's uncertainty about his heritage complicates his role in making decisions affecting Indigenous communities.
Mayor calls for stricter gun control in Canada. Montreal Mayor Valérie Plante and survivors of the 1989 Polytechnique massacre are urging stronger gun control laws in Canada. They argue that Bill C-21 does not adequately address the need for a complete ban on assault-style weapons. This call for action comes in light of recent tragedies, including a mass shooting in Nova Scotia that left 23 people dead. The advocacy group Police Souvient estimates that around 450 additional firearms should be banned. Mayor Plante points out that many military-style weapons still remain exempt from current rules, making it more challenging to improve public safety.
Senator Blumenthal discusses TikTok ownership requirement. On November 19, 2024, Senator Blumenthal addressed the need for ByteDance, the Chinese company behind TikTok, to sell the app by January 19, 2025. This requirement was set by the United States Congress in response to concerns about national security and the possibility of the Chinese government accessing personal data from American users. Blumenthal criticized President-elect Trump for saying he would not enforce this requirement, emphasizing that the law must be followed. He also expressed concerns about major U.S. tech companies like Tesla and Apple, highlighting the risks associated with their connections to China.
That is all the news for today. Thank you for listening to today's Headphone News. News summary brought to you by AI.